Like many of you, I have been overwhelmed in the last couple of weeks with the scale of corruption of the new executive administration. The new administration seems to think that if it does an enormous amount, even if that enormous amount of regulations, rules, policy actions, or whatever the Trump administration is doing, even if that enormous amount is illegal and unconstitutional, by the sheer scale of what they are doing, the courts and private parties won't be able to keep up. And I think that they have made a safe bet on that front. Like many of you, I have been overwhelmed in the last couple of weeks with the sheer scale of this corruption. But this corruption did not start with this administration. It didn't start in the last 4 years, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. It goes back a long way. When it comes to the executive branch of the federal government of this country has taken authority, constitutional authority in terms of setting domestic policy, in terms of administering funds, and in the foreign policy arena, statutory authority and congressional authority to basically do whatever the executive branch of government wants to do outside of the United States. So we have seen a gradual erosion of Congress's authority and Congress's constitutional power to really do anything besides, at this point, be a rubber stamp for what the president wants to do. This is something that's taken a long time to happen. I guess in terms of history, it's not that long of a time. I would say this latest iteration of corruption probably started about 30, 40 years ago. But it's safe to say that the scale of what is happening is unprecedented, and it's something that even legal observers, even lawyers like me, struggle to keep up with. There are so many different lawsuits and legal fights coming out of what the administration is doing. But again, it seems that their bet is that if they do enough of this, and if they use the executive authority that they have to, practically speaking, accomplish a policy objective that they want to, then by the time the courts arrive, where the courts get to a point where there's an order entered against them or some kind of judicial action, by then the Trump administration will already have done what it wants to do. So I think that that is the strategy that they're undertaking. Now, corruption is something that is not partisan. It's something that is Republican and Democratic. It's something that is a society-wide problem. It's something that starts at a local level. In my day-to-day practice, I see police officers committing acts of corruption. I see government agencies doing that at the state and local level. I see landlords taking advantage of tenants. I see corruption sometimes in the courts. I see things like this happen at a local level. Corruption is the placement of the self-interest above everything else. Nothing matters except for what I want. Nothing matters except what I can get out of this. And the public interest in terms of the government, if you're a government official, the president on down through a police officer or a judge or someone else that has some public authority, if you place your interest, your personal interest, above the interest of the public, then you are betraying the public that you were appointed or elected to serve. It's as simple as that. And when enough officials start to do that, when the message from on high is that if you are a public official and if you are loyal enough to the party that's in power, then the party that's in power has enough authority and enough power to allow you to get away with pretty much anything. You can steal public funds. You can bribe officials. You can ask for your criminal charges to be dropped. You can negotiate policy objectives in a criminal case. We're talking about the New York issue that seems to have happened with the mayor there. So if the message from on high is that corruption is okay, rest assured that that will be something that infects all of society within a generation. You will have a situation where the rule of law is undermined. Corruption and the rule of law cannot exist at the same time. If individuals in government, if government officials, if private parties generally are placing their private interest above anything else, to the extent to the extent that they are violating the laws on the books, to defraud and steal and commit crimes, then eventually that example is going to trickle on down. And those old examples, those old values of integrity, honesty, what I think in the modern world we would like to call those old values, those values which are actually fundamental bedrocks of any kind of a modern democratic society that has a functioning rule of law, where if you're wronged, you can go to court and you can prove your case and justice will prevail. That will come undone. So I think that as overwhelmed as we might be, we have to keep that fundamental issue in mind, that what happens on high, what happens in the executive branch of government, has effects on us all. And from the executive branch, if the example that the leaders of this country want to set is that you can pardon your family, you can pardon people who did things to help you, you can enrich yourself at the expense of the government, you can enrich yourself at the expense of the public interest. If that's the example that we're setting, then I am fearful for our society, and I'm fearful for the rule of law, and I'm fearful for what the future holds. I don't really have any other message besides that in this. I've recorded a few videos before, and I think that those videos have been pretty specifically focused on different legal issues, and I'll keep posting those. But this is something that I've been thinking a lot about. This current climate, again, I don't want to blame one party, but the current government climate, the current climate of governmental administration in this country, the current political climate is not sustainable. If you have basically people using the public fisc for their own benefit and taking actions to benefit themselves on a daily basis, eventually the example of that is going to trickle down through society, and folks are going to heed that example. And it's going to be much harder to have any kind of an effective functioning rule of law. More on that to come.